Associate Professor Dr. Narumon Uramanigul from Department of Public Health Nursing, Faculty of Public Health, Mahidol University. Today I will introduce you the class of population migration, cultural difference, and impact on health. Regarding to the definition of health, WHO mentioned that the health refers to the state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. But later on, they introduced the holistic health with composed of 4 dimensions. First, physical, second, mental, and third, cultural, and fourth, spiritual, including the harmonized interrelationship between environment, ideological, political, social, and economic conditions. So you can see that holistic health, the definition will include the culture. So what does culture mean to you? Some people may think about the costume. Some people may think about the religious. So what is the definition of culture indeed? The central elements of culture compose of customs, beliefs, values. What is custom means? The custom means the behavioral regularities related to the continuity of social relationship contributing meaning to everyday life. So what does belief mean? The belief means the proposition accepted as true for a certain society or community. The values, what does it mean? The values mean the standard to evaluate the behaviors and beliefs according to some certain society or community. So the differentiate between cultures and cultures. So what does culture mean? The culture means the total life way of human group. It consists of learned patterns of values, beliefs, customs, and behaviors that are shared by a group of interacting individuals, or a set of rules or standards for behavior. But for cultures, it means the group of people who share a common culture together. So the cultural group may bond together by tapestry of historically inherited ideas, or they may bond by beliefs, values, knowledge, and traditions, or they may bond by art, customs, habits, languages, roles, and share meaning about the world. Right now, we cannot refuse that there is one world, one health from globalization. For example, in Asia country, we are the same country right now because we entering the era of AEC, or what we call Asia Economic Community. Therefore, there is no possibility of escape from cultural difference or cultural diversity. So what is diversity is about? Diversity is about our difference. Difference on age, different on gender, different on personality, different in sexual oriented, different in race, ethnicity, religions, different in ability, for example, physical or mental ability, different in regions, for example, urban or rural regions, different in class, social class, or political class, or different in generation to generation, or even migration. Right now in Thailand, the hospitalization isn't friendly to transgender. The cultural diversity not only comes from the globalization, it also comes from the migration. that cause the marginalization and refugee. What does a migration mean actually? Its a fundamental characteristic of people is their movement from place to place. So that according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 13, everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state, and everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. According to the report from G20, it showed that the top 3 destination countries of migration composed of the first rank is United States of America, the second rank is Germany, the third rank is Saudi Arabia. And for the top country of origin of immigrants, they come from the first one is India, the second one is Mexico, and the third one is Russia. Nowadays, there is a war in Ukraine, which caused the fastest growing refugee crisis since Second World War. Where the refugee fleeing to? The refugee from Ukraine, they're fleeing to Poland right now. But the refugee not only come from the war, but they come from another reason as well. For example, the Rohingya, where they move from Myanmar to another destination, which is still the problem in Asia. So those people are what we call refugees. They will become marginalized. The marginalization occurs where neither the new nor the old cultures are accepted, which means the new culture is refused. The old culture is refused as well. Those marginalization people who move from their country, where the destination is often focused on the Europe country. So once they reach the mainland of their destination, which is basically is Europe country, they will face the Eurocentric model of care, which means behavior of non-white people need to be corrected to conform with this embodied, purified scientific solution. That means the Eurocentric model of care, they will believe only the knowledge or the culture from white people, but reject non-white people behavior. So this is the trouble. Because nowadays, we have already faced the multiculturalism, which people are in fact that linked in many ways, then their birthplace divide them. So that no matter they come from globalization, marginalized from refugee, or so on and so forth. The term globalization, they have the meaning of negative itself, because it shows that the dominant culture remain their position of power over those who are economic dependent. For example, if Rohingya enter to Europe, they will face the dominant culture from the mainland at their destination. The marginalized immigrants and indigenous have been ignored and dismissed, which is called discriminatory. Language have disappeared, and culture characteristics have gradually decreased as people try to minimize and coping the difference from mainstream society. For example, today I use English language in the class, which means that my Thai language, even though I am not migrated to US, I am not migrate to European, but the dominant culture from globalization is from US, is from UK, so that our native language will be gradually decreased as people try to use the language for international understanding. So this may be pro and con of globalization. But anyway, the globalization will somehow cause the discrimination. What is the discrimination means? It means disrespect, ignorance, looking down, making fun of, racist attitudes, prejudice, negative portrayal, speaking against, offensive against, violence against, and biological inferiority. So what is biological inferiority mean actually is? You can see from the slide that biological inferiorities, normally people will show the picture of black people as the people with underserved, as the people with poverty, as the picture with homeless. But in fact, the white people itself, a lot of white people in developing countries, they are homeless, they are underserved, and they are poverty. In this picture, in the right hand side, that is the picture of the beggar or homeless in developing country or in US country. She take credit card for the money of change. So that means they use the black people as a biological inferiority rather than pick the picture of the white people. In Canada, it's the only one country in the world to have a national multiculturalism law since 1971. But anyway, there is a lot of controversy happen because they think that mandating tolerance does not create any real understanding. So we as a health professional, we need to understand the cultural norms, traditions, to help us understand different ways of thinking about health, life, and different perspectives of well-being. Because cultural knowledge often described as diet and eating habit, child rearing practice, reaction to pain, stress, and death, a sense of past, present, and future, response to healthcare service and practitioners, including which behavior are considered as a violation of social norm, which I will show you in the next slides. So this slide shows the systematic review of the dietary advice and traditional foods that doctor suggests for the refugee. And the conclusion of the systematic review found that the dietary advice did not take account of traditional food or ways of cooking, limiting the relevance of the advice for ethnic minority groups. For example, African Caribbean, they said that the dietary advice received was more suited to a European plate, in Thailand as well actually. The dietary advice for Indian and Pakistani people, the information focused on European food. And another study found that the dietary advice was about foods that were too English. This is an example of cultural effect on health, especially for diet and eating habit, which healthcare personnel need to understand, because right now it's multiculturalism society. So that once the foreigner come to get an advice, you must be the cultural competent enough or cultural sensitivity enough to be able to suggest accordingly. In Southern Hospital of Thailand, for example, we face the situation as well. Because there is the limitation of halal food for Muslim patients, and there is no place for prayer, including the healthcare personnel itself is lacking of intercultural sensitivity or competency. You can see that even though it is not a refugee, but the minority inside of the country, if we don't understand their culture, we cannot take care of them properly. Another cultural effects to health, for example, is a child rearing practice, where most of Asian countries, they believe that spare the rod, spoil the child, so that they tend to believe that harsh corporal punishment is effective. Then they think that beating for child better future. They think that beating is because of love. But in fact, is it real that beating because of love? Is it real that the child or the kids, you think that way? Some parents even do harsh corporal punishment until they fall out of the cradle. And they're making the lie to the healthcare personnel that their baby have fallen out of their cradle by themselves. So what is a child rights mean to you? In Thailand, we signed the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which have 4 themes for child rights. The first one is survival rights, developmental rights, protection rights, and participation rights. But what happened now in Thailand situation? There is a lot of abortions happen daily, because abortion is illegal in Thai society. The reason behind is that Thai women, before they're getting married, they're supposed to keep their virginity. That's one reason of abortion become illegal. Besides, the belief of Buddhism that killing is a sin. In Europe, they have the baby box served for unwanted pregnancy, but still they have the controversy and criticize in terms of the rights to know their parents among those kids in baby box, which will be sent to the shelter. Another belief of child rearing practice is that the parents have the rights over the child. Just like in Thailand in the past decades, we have Tra Sam Duang laws that the child belongs to the parents, the wife belongs to the husband. In this picture, it's not happened in Thailand, but it's happened in Pakistan. And I give you the link of BBC News. In Pakistani or Muslim tradition or culture, they're supposed to cover all bodies. And the girl cannot go outside without accompanied by the man in the family. This girl, she only staring or checking out a guy, but it's considered as the stigma or the loss of face for the family members, so that her parents I mean her mother and her father, feeling ashamed that she's staring or checking out of the guy because it's unacceptable for their own culture. So that this girl come back home with the punishment from their parents by throwing the acids to the body until causing the severe burn for her body, and finally she dead. And because of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, her parents has been jailed because of her death. So that you can see that in Asia or South Asia, we have the same belief or culture that the parents have the rights over the child. We can do whatever we want to them. In the UNICEF information, they said that nearly half of all adolescent girls think a husband is justified in hitting his partner. This is called domestic violence. This is acceptable for Asia and South Asia. And right now, we're trying to encourage them to know that girls are not properties. They have the right to determine their destiny. This is another cultural impact to health. Another cultural impact or effect to health is the reaction to pain, stress, and death. The sense of past, present, and future, or what we call the law of karma. I hope you know the term law of karma in Buddhism, because we believe in reincarnation. We believe in reborn. So that is effect to our belief and effect to our health and behavior. That everything that happens in our body, in our illness, or even maltreatment, that people prone to think that because of their previous law of karma in their previous life, so that in this life they have to face with maltreatment or violence, or they have to face with some illness because of the past life. Thinking in that way will make us doing nothing about our illness or doing nothing about maltreatment that we face. Another cultural effect or impact to health is in Nepal. As you can see from the slide, that the Nepali women, if they have the period, they need to confine themselves in a small hut outside of the home. And you can see that the hut is very small that the woman cannot even stand. They need to spend 3 or 4 days, depending on their period, inside of that small house, which is called hut. And the period is concerning as the shame, the taboo, or the impunity that you cannot touch any man in your family or anyone besides being alone in that hut. Even the tampon, they cannot affordable, and it is not available in the remote area, so that they will use torn sari. And this will cause the urinary tract infection and also cause the female unhealthy hygiene. Another cultural effect on health or impact on health is that in the past of Chinese era, you might know her in the picture. Her name is Susi Taihao. She is very influenced people in that era. But in that era, I mean the past era of Chinese society, their culture or their belief is that when you born as a girl, you need to have a small feet or what they call lotus feet. That is the starting point of binding feet. And you can see that in the picture, the noble woman or the high society women, they're supposed to have the lotus feet just like this. Even Susie Taihao herself, that she holds a lot of power, she needs to buy her feet just like this. And she cannot walk properly. She needs a helper to walk. So this is the example of cultural impact to health, especially for women's health. And those who cannot have the lotus feet just like this, they will use the shoes like in the picture. So that once the shoe appears under the skirt, it will look like they have a small feet. And this shoe become the high heels until now. How about the lip plate in Somalia, Tanzania? The lip plate for the woman means the amount of the dowry they gain when they're getting married. But imagine when she have to eat, when she have to drink, what will happen? Will that be easy or will that be difficulty? Have you heard about Desert Flower and Desert Dawn, right by Waris Dari? She is a Somali woman that ran away from her country because of the female genital mutilation, or what we call female genital cutting or circumcision. It is very painful and unhealthy for women. At the age around 3 or 4 years old, they have to undergo female genital cutting or female circumcision. And they have the rank of the circumcision too. The rank number 1 is that cutting the clitoris. The rank number 2 is cutting clitoris and labia minora. And the rank number 3 is cutting clitoris, labia minora, labia majora, and stitching utera and also her vagina. Why they do this? Because their culture is that the woman need to be virginality before getting married. And doing so, we keep them virgin because they cannot feel any sexual arousal. So is this justice for a woman? However, even when high-educated family, they don't want their kid to be cut, but they cannot be in the community properly because it would be the stigma for the community. So those are the examples of why cultural impact to health and why we need to understand the culture. So right now we come to the cultural implication. The behavior might be cultural with norms and values. And now we come to the implication. Because of the multiculturalism that we need to understand the culture, that we understand that behavior might be cultural with norms and values, supporting the behavior at homes. Then, or therefore, to know custom or values from specific cultures allows you to work with and within the cultural pattern of that community. Therefore, cultural competence is very necessary for you guys as a healthcare personnel. What is cultural competence mean? It means professional attitudes, research skills, and system safety for cross-cultural situations. It means that you need to respect the attitude of people, or respectful attitude, value the core of humanity in the others without necessarily admiring or even approving of the belief or other difference. Only understanding. You don't have to admire and don't have to approving because some culture is not healthy. So cultural competence continuum will start from cultural destructive until cultural proficiency. The cultural competence build on the concept of cultural sensitivities and cultural awareness and refers to the ability of healthcare providers to apply knowledge and skill appropriately in interaction with clients. In the US, they have the National Class Standard. What is it? It is the cultural and linguistically appropriate service that ensure all people that entrance in the healthcare system receive equitable and effective treatment in culturally and linguistically appropriate manners. It's composed of 14 standards and grouping into 3 groups. The first group is cultural competence care. The second group is language access service. And the last one is organization support for cultural competence. Therefore, in having culturally and linguistically appropriate service, you have to have an organizational cultural competence. So you must have a culturally competent organization where the multicultural mission and goal is necessary. The diversity in hiring, retention, and promotion is count. Valuing and managing diversity is focused, and permeable boundaries with the community. In Thailand, we don't have the class. We don't have the cultural and linguistically appropriate service. But we have JCN, or Joint Commission International, to improving the quality and safety of the healthcare for every patient across the globe. That means that at least we will hiring a staff from different countries, and we will provide you the diversity languages. For the healthcare provider who want or wish to do the cultural appropriate project, the community-based participation principle is suggested. As you can see from the slide that community-based participation action research, they will take culture into account, and they will use the qualitative data collection technique to assess culture impact to health. For example, interview, participation observation, or AIC or PLD. To create the environment of cultural safety. What is the cultural safety mean? The cultural safety means the ability to explore, reflect on, and understand one's own culture in order to recognize and interact with others from their cultural perspective. Therefore, to create the environment of cultural safety, you need to get rid of the danger zone for interviewing. And you need to improve the comfort zone of interviewing. What is the danger zone, risk zone, and comfort zone? The danger zone is the zone where you include people with punishment power. And the risk zone is that you don't include the people with punishment power, but they witness your interview. Comfort zone is that the zone where they get rid of power imbalance, whatever it is. So they try to improve or encourage comfort zone in order to get the environment of cultural safety when you do your research. And effective communication is necessary for effective health assessment. You need to listen attentively to people. You need to accept and act upon what they say. And you need to use the language that can be understood by everyone. especially for layperson or blue collar. And you need to be very truthful and sincere. Act in socially and culturally appropriate way. More importantly, you need to take into account of nonverbal language as well. So in conclusion, in doing effective health assessment, you need to assess for custom to ensure that the customs such as diet, interaction style, religious practice, family structures, organizational patterns are included in the plan. You need to assess for belief to ensure that activities are congruent with the belief. In supernatural, about the cause of illness and about the healthy behavior. You also need to assess the value to ensure that activity reflect people value, for example, interdependence, family solidarity, nature of man and woman. More importantly, activism or cultural sensitivity rather than ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentrism? Ethnocentrism means my own culture is the best one, is the only correct one. The other belief or the other behavior are wrong. If you believe in ethnocentrism, it will be the barriers to understanding, and it will be the barrier to assess the cultural impact to health. And therefore, it will prevent the accurate assessment. But you need to be healthcare provider who is very cultural relativism. It means that you need to understand cultural belief, behavior in their cultural context in order to increase understanding and enhance accurate assessment. Once your assessment is accurate, then you can fix it properly. So this comes to the end of my session. I hope that my session will ignite you to work with cultural appropriately. Last but not least, my lecture today is all about the apply of the Prince Mahidol philosophy, which is true success is not in the learning, but in its application to the benefit of mankind. I hope you enjoy the class. สวัสดีค่ะ